Welcome to the Daily History Chronicle. Each day, we travel back to discover a pivotal moment that changed the world. These aren't just dates and facts. They're stories of courage, conflict, innovation, and consequence that still echo through our lives today. Are you ready to explore? Let's see what happened on this day in history.
This is the Daily History Chronicle, where we explore the moments that shaped our world and discover why they still matter today. I'm Richard Backus, publisher of University Teaching Edition, and every day I get to share a piece of history that I think you'll find as fascinating as I do. The paintings on the ceiling celebrated French victories over German lands. The German princes didn't care. They had come to proclaim an empire in the very heart of French glory. While outside, Paris was starving. On January 18th, 1871, 600 German officers crowded into the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles. They carried battle-torn banners from the war that was still being fought just miles away. French cannons still boomed in the distance. The most incredible city in Europe was under siege, its citizens reduced to eating rats and zoo animals. And here, in the palace that Louis XIV had built to showcase French magnificence, the Germans were about to deliver the ultimate humiliation. Otto von Bismarck, the Prussian minister-president who had engineered this moment through years of diplomacy and 3 carefully orchestrated wars, stood in a white cuirassier uniform. King Wilhelm I of Prussia waited on a raised platform. The German princes, rulers of Bavaria, Saxony, Baden, and dozens of smaller states that had spent centuries squabbling among themselves, stood united for the first time in history. When the ceremony ended, the German Empire would exist, and nothing in Europe would ever be the same. Picture this. It's a bitter January morning, and the Palace of Versailles has been transformed into a military headquarters. Prussian officers stride through halls once reserved for French aristocracy. The gardens where Marie Antoinette once played are now artillery parks. The palace that symbolized French power for 2 centuries has become the command center for France's destruction. In the Hall of Mirrors, workers have erected an altar in the center of the gallery and a platform at one end. Directly opposite, where the throne of Louis XIV once stood. The irony is intentional. Everything about this day is designed to wound. The date itself is symbolic. January 18th marks the anniversary of Frederick I's coronation as the first King of Prussia in 1701. By choosing this date, Bismarck connected the new empire to Prussian tradition while signaling that something larger had emerged. And then there is the ceiling. The paintings above the assembled princes depict Louis XIV's military triumphs, his conquests of German cities, his humiliation of German rulers, his expansion of French power at German expense. For 200 years, those paintings have celebrated French dominance. Now German officers stand beneath them, their banners raised in defiance, their emperor about to be proclaimed in the very room that was built to mock them. Outside, the siege of Paris continues. The city has been surrounded since September. 2 million Parisians are trapped, slowly starving. They have eaten the animals from the zoo, elephant, camel, and kangaroo. They are eating horses, dogs, and rats. Balloons drift over the Prussian lines, carrying desperate messages to the outside world. The city will surrender in 10 days. But first, there is an empire to proclaim. To understand what happened in the Hall of Mirrors, you have to understand what Germany was before Bismarck and what he did to change it. For centuries, there was no Germany. There were Germans, people who spoke the same language, shared similar customs, read the same poets and philosophers, but politically they were scattered across hundreds of independent states. The Holy Roman Empire, which nominally united German-speaking lands, was famously described as neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. When Napoleon finally abolished it in 1806, he was merely acknowledging a reality that had existed for generations. After Napoleon's defeat in 1815, the Congress of Vienna established the German Confederation, a loose association of 39 sovereign states. Austria and Prussia, the two great German powers, competed for influence within it. Smaller states played them against each other. The idea of a unified Germany existed in the minds of poets and professors, but no one knew how to achieve it. Then came Bismarck. Otto von Bismarck became minister-president of Prussia in 1862. He was a Junker, a member of the Prussian land-owning aristocracy, and a ruthless political operator. He had no patience for the liberal nationalists who dreamed of unifying Germany through constitutions and parliaments. Unity, he believed, would come through power. The great questions of the time will not be resolved by speeches and majority decisions, he told the Prussian parliament in 1862, but by iron and blood. Iron and blood, that became his method. In 1864, Bismarck engineered a war with Denmark over the duchies of Schleswig and Holstein. Prussia and Austria fought together and won easily. 2 years later, Bismarck maneuvered Austria into a war with Prussia, a war that lasted just 7 weeks and ended with Austrian defeat at the Battle of Königgrätz. Austria was expelled from German affairs. Prussia now dominated northern Germany, but the southern German states, Bavaria, Württemberg, Baden, remained independent. They were Catholic, suspicious of Protestant Prussia, and in some cases more sympathetic to France than to their northern neighbors. Bismarck needed something to unite them with the North. He needed a common enemy. The Franco-Prussian War began in July 1870, and Bismarck had stage-managed its outbreak with the skill of a theatrical producer. A dispute over the Spanish succession gave him his opportunity. When a German prince was offered the Spanish throne, France objected. The Prussian king, Wilhelm I, met with the French ambassador at the resort town of Ems and politely declined to make any promises about future candidacies. The encounter was cordial, even friendly. Bismarck received a telegram describing the meeting. He edited it. The published version, the famous Ems Dispatch, made it appear that the French ambassador had been insulting and that the Prussian king had rebuffed him with contempt. France was outraged. The French press demanded war. Napoleon III, the French emperor, took the bait. France declared war on July 19, 1870. It was precisely what Bismarck wanted. The southern German states, bound by treaty to support Prussia against French aggression, had no choice but to join. For the first time, Germans from every region would fight together against France, the hereditary enemy, the power that had humiliated them under Louis XIV and again under Napoleon. The war was swift and devastating. The French army, poorly organized and badly led, collapsed within weeks. On September 2nd, Napoleon III himself was captured at the Battle of Sedan, along with over 100,000 of his soldiers. The Second French Empire fell. A new French Republic struggled to continue the war, but Paris was soon surrounded. As the siege dragged on through the autumn and into winter, Bismarck turned to the task of creating an empire. It was not easy. The southern German kings did not want to subordinate themselves to Prussia. King Ludwig II of Bavaria, in particular, resisted. Bismarck eventually secured his cooperation through a combination of pressure, promises, and outright bribery. Ludwig received a secret annual payment of 300,000 marks from Prussian funds, money he used to build his famous fairy tale castles. On January 18, 1871, the princes were ready. The constitution of the new German Empire had already taken effect on January 1st. What remained was the ceremony, the proclamation that would announce to the world that Germany was won. Bismarck read the proclamation aloud. When he finished, Frederick, Grand Duke of Baden, Wilhelm's son-in-law, shouted, "Long live His Majesty, Kaiser Wilhelm!" The assembled officers and princes roared their approval. Outside, the troops took up the cheers. There was no crown, no coronation. This empire had been forged in battle, not blessed by ceremony. Wilhelm I descended from the platform and, according to witnesses, refused to shake Bismarck's hand. The old king had wanted to be Emperor of Germany, ruler of a nation. Instead, he was German Emperor, merely first among the princes. It was a distinction that mattered deeply to him, and he blamed Bismarck for the compromise. But the constitutional niceties mattered less than the reality. There was now a German Empire, and it was the most powerful nation on the European continent. The British statesman Benjamin Disraeli understood immediately what had happened. This war represents the German Revolution, he told Parliament, a greater political event than the French Revolution of the last century. The balance of power has been entirely destroyed. He was right. For 2 centuries, European diplomacy had been built around preventing any single power from dominating the continent. France under Louis XIV, France under Napoleon, each had tried, and coalitions of opposing states had checked each. Now Germany, with its growing population, industrial might, and formidable army, threatened to upset every calculation. France surrendered on January 28, 1871, just 10 days after the proclamation. The Treaty of Frankfurt imposed harsh terms. France lost Alsace and part of Lorraine, territories with significant German-speaking populations. France was required to pay an indemnity of 5 billion francs. German troops would occupy French territory until the debt was paid. The French paid faster than anyone expected, within 2 years, but the humiliation was not forgotten. The loss of Alsace-Lorraine became a national obsession. French maps showed the lost provinces in black. School children were taught to remember. Revenge became a national aspiration. Bismarck understood the danger he'd created. For the next 19 years, he worked tirelessly to prevent a coalition from forming against Germany. He cultivated alliances with Austria-Hungary and Russia. He encouraged French colonial adventures in Africa to distract them from Europe. He told anyone who would listen that Germany was a satisfied power, seeking no further expansion. But Bismarck could not rule forever. In 1890, the young Kaiser Wilhelm II, grandson of the first Wilhelm, dismissed him. The new emperor wanted a more aggressive foreign policy, a larger navy, a place in the sun for Germany among the colonial powers. The careful balance Bismarck had maintained began to unravel. By 1914, Europe was divided into 2 armed camps, Germany and Austria-Hungary on one side, France, Russia, and Britain on the other. When a Serbian nationalist assassinated an Austrian archduke in Sarajevo, the alliance system that had been built over 4 decades pulled every major power into war. 4 years later, 10 million soldiers were dead. And then came the final irony. On June 28, 1919, exactly 48 years after the Treaty of Frankfurt ended the Franco-Prussian War, the Treaty of Versailles was signed. The location was deliberate. the same hall of mirrors where the German Empire had been proclaimed, the same paintings of French triumph on the ceiling, the same palace that had witnessed Germany's moment of glory. This time, it was Germany's turn to be humiliated. Clemenceau, the French prime minister who had lived through the siege of Paris as a young man, made sure of it. Germany lost territory. Germany accepted sole blame for the war. Germany was required to pay reparations that would cripple its economy. German representatives were not invited to negotiate. They were presented with terms and told to sign. The empire born in the Hall of Mirrors died in the Hall of Mirrors. The humiliation of 1919 would fuel the resentments that brought Adolf Hitler to power. The wheel would turn again. These are the facts. On January 18, 1871, Wilhelm I of Prussia was proclaimed German Emperor in the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles. The ceremony took place while Paris was under siege, in a palace built to celebrate French power, beneath paintings depicting French victories over German lands. The proclamation marked the culmination of 3 wars engineered by Otto von Bismarck to unite the German states under Prussian leadership. These are also facts. The new German Empire immediately became the most powerful nation on the European continent. Its creation upset the balance of power that had maintained relative peace since Napoleon's defeat. The humiliation inflicted on France in 1871 was repaid with interest in 1919, and the humiliation of 1919 would contribute to an even greater catastrophe 2 decades later. And this is the consequence we still live with. The borders drawn and redrawn through these conflicts, the resentments created and nursed across generations, the pattern of humiliation and revenge, these shape the 20th century and continue to echo in European politics today. Bismarck built an empire through blood and iron. He spent the rest of his career trying to preserve it through diplomacy. His successors lacked his skill. The empire lasted 47 years, less than a single human lifetime. But its creation and destruction remade the world. I'm Richard Backus, and this is the Daily History Chronicle. Tomorrow, we'll explore another moment that shaped our world. Until then, consider this. A palace built to celebrate French glory became the birthplace of a German empire. 48 years later, that same palace witnessed the empire's destruction. The French chose the location carefully. They remembered. Nations, it seems, have long memories. The question is whether they remember the right things and whether memory serves peace or merely postpones the next war. Thank you for spending these few minutes with me. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's story. And if you have a moment, leaving a rating or a comment means more than you might realize. It helps other history lovers find us, and honestly, I read every single one. If this episode made you think, share it with someone who might appreciate it too. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow for more of our shared history.